Because what you, the unsung heroes in the wastewater industry, do matters. Join me, Suzan Chin-Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, a longtime veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry each week as I deliver industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, training and retaining great talent, sales and marketing, leadership and growth, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we are visiting with Blair Corning, who is the Deputy Director of the South Platte Renew in Colorado. And this is going to be one of a two-part visit with Blair because we've got some interesting topics that kind of dovetail very, very well into each other. And so thank you, Blair, for being on the show with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Suzan.
Well, when we were offline and thinking about, okay, what are we going to talk about? You know, we met each other on LinkedIn. We've never, and most of you know, it's like my favorite platform for, business of all kind of meeting interesting people. But you brought up the subject of all of these new regulations that are coming down the pike that, are obviously going to be affecting, your utility. But, we hear about this nationwide, one of them being, PFAS and Phosphorus and BOD, all these things that are coming, microplastics. And, it's just coming at us in rapid succession. And, one state may adopt it in some level, and let's say Colorado's doing it one way, and Pennsylvania may do it in another. But all of the states and all of the wastewater and water operators, you're all going to have to deal with these new regulations in one form or another. And you had some great ideas and things to share of what you are doing at your entity to stay ahead of the curve. And I really wanted you to share it as food for thought of how it might help others if they're trying to plan for this regulatory compliance, what they should be thinking about doing. And so with that, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thanks, Suzan. Thanks for having me. I like you said, I met you on LinkedIn. I went back and looked at the podcast, and I found a lot of good episodes there. So it's a whole treasured information about the industry. So thanks for putting that out, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, as far as regulations, I think we are in the same boat as a lot of people. We're a wastewater treatment plant that serves the Southwest Metro Denver area. So we serve about 300,000 people. We have 19. We're owned by two cities, the cities of Littleton and Inglewood, 19 connector districts that connect to either Littleton or Inglewood. So we're kind of at a good size. We do about 20 million gallons a day that we treat. And we have interest in, you mentioned PFAS, which is a big one.
Right.
We're dealing here in Colorado, and I think nationwide people are trying to get a handle on what to do about PFAS, how much to do. They just came out, with the drinking water MCL. And so how's that going to affect drinking water uses on the streams that we discharge to, and do all that without. And RO means you have that brine concentrate with all the reject, all the bad stuff goes into that brine stream. And what do you do with that brine stream if you can't send it out? So we're trying to look ahead and do the most we can with what we have. As far as at our facility, we have excess capacity. So we're looking at ways to access capacity into usable space, usable treatment for the plant, and get what we need out of the excess capacity that we currently have, while still keeping in mind that at some point, if the regs go down, we're talking in Colorado, there's a reg 85 for nutrients. So it kind of set technology-based limits for nitrogen and phosphorus, and we're meeting those. But the next step is what they call reg 31, and that'll bring it way down. And so we're always keeping an eye on, we're meeting it now, but we're going to have to come down a bunch when that reg passes, or, the limits aren't going up anywhere. I've never seen them in my, over 25 year career. I've never seen a limit go up really. So maybe on certain occasions, but usually they keep ratcheting them down. So we're trying to keep our eye on the ball. They're 10 years out, so that we don't get stuck in a position where come out and we're like how are we going to meet these? We're trying to plan ahead a bit, which is the name of the game in municipalities, water, wastewater treatment.
Right. Now, when you were saying about that reg, what do you have any idea what brought that next reg that you now have to meet? That what was it, 39 or 35? What prompted, maybe you know the answer to this or maybe not. What is prompting these regulations to get more stringent and more stringent? Is it the burden that we're putting as people, just got population, what we've got coming into the waste streams to protect the environment, or is it something else?
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, some of it is it's all based on environmental protection. Everyone has a different opinion of how much we should protect the environment and what trade-offs we should, include in that environmental protection. But basically the EPA sets the regulations or technology that's not based on cost. That's not based on people's appetite for removing certain things or how much they think needs. It doesn't include any of that. It's scientific based on protection of aquatic life or protection of drinking water. And so really with the Clean Water Act, nothing goes into account to set those regs except for science. And the problem with that is eggs like we have with nutrients, and they're not, it's not feasible to meet them. So now we're, as a state and as a utility, saying how, what's feasible to meet, what makes sense technology wise, because we know the reg might be 0.005 or whatever the case, but if there's no technology to meet that, really what good is it? So we're trying to kind of find alternative ways or alternative options to reducing pollution, reducing nutrients in the stream, which is good for everybody, and while still not bankrupting people or not going overboard on it. So they've come up with the state here, state of Colorado, a VIP program, voluntary incentive program. So that said, you got to meet these nutrient limits, but if you go past that, if you take out even more than what is, then you voluntarily take out more, we'll incentivize that by giving you years on the other side to meet this lower reg. So that's been a real successful program for us and for Colorado as a whole, because it's taking nutrients out of the streams right now, and it's taking more than what the limit says, because people have an incentive to do so by pushing out a few years on the back end of meeting those super tight regs.
Right. That is a great idea, that voluntary to, go beyond the bare minimum of what you have to meet. So from a technology standpoint, how are you situated in meeting some of these new regs, or what is now going to be pressing, for technology providers to come up with that is not currently available or is still in what we would call infancy?
Yeah, that's the key is what will be that, is there that silver bullet out there to meet these really low regs on PFAS, on nutrients, on fluorides, whatever the case may be. How do we get to that technology, and what's going to be the silver bullet to get there? So that's what we're looking for. It's not really a silver bullet, is probably not a good term, because it's not something that may not exist. It probably does exist, but it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of planning to get there. I think a lot what we're doing here now through our master plan. We just got finished doing a master plan for our facility, which kind of outlines what technologies we would need by what time frame to meet these regs. And a lot of what that is what they call intensification. So intensification, where you have a process and you're getting treatment, but how can we intensify that? How can we use the same amount of surface area or the same basin, but maybe add, media in there, add a membrane, make the treatment more efficient, more effective, utilizing the space or the infrastructure that is currently existing. So that's kind of the new thing in wastewater treatment is this idea of intensification or really ramping up, amping up the processes that you have to get the most out of them, because when they were all built, some of them 10, 30, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't know what we know now. So can we go back, take these basins and really get more out of them in the year 2024 than we ever thought we could when they were built in 2004,
So I'd like to really go down the rabbit hole with that. We hadn't talked about that, but this process of intensification. And for those plants who might be listening that haven't taken a step towards doing that, how did you at your entity get started with that? Like, where did you start looking, and how did you go about implementing this? Was it difficult, or was there a very, very systematic approach to discover where you could make these improvements for, as you were saying, this intensification, getting more out of what you have beyond what you thought it was designed for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of it is a lot of it comes from mindset. I think utilities have been, in my mind, not crippled, but held back a little bit because we're a conservative industry. We have to be, because the wastewater never stops flowing. So you can't shut the plant off and do some research for 6 months and come back with something. So, it's always coming in. So you gotta treat that. You gotta meet permits every day, all continuously. So because of that, it makes us it in the past has made utilities very conservative and very risk averse to try new things or thinking a little bit outside the box. I think what we've done here is change that mindset and said, how can we look outside the box? How can we bring in a bunch of ideas and not automatically say, no, not going to work, not that one, which is kind of how you're, not everyone, but it's kind of how the industry's programmed on a whole because of the importance and the, because of what it is. So I think a lot of it is in that acceptance of, we want new ideas, bring ideas to us. There's no bad idea. Well, there's no bad suggestion. We'll try it and see how it works, or see if it's viable. So that's part of it. I think consultants are smart. We have a lot of good consultants that we work with who, do projects all over the country. So word gets around on, new treatment technologies, what's working, what's out there, what's in the pipeline. So a lot of it is working with consultants and picking their brains and doing things like the master plan to say, hey, we have this primary treatment process. What can we do to, increase the usable BOD for the process downstream? Or what can we do to, ramp up our aeration basins? Can we get new blowers? Can we get, more finer bubbles that are more accessible for the bacteria, or whatever the case may be? So I think a lot of it is the mindset. A lot of it is having smart consultants, and a lot of it is just employee driven. Our employees here love to do this. They love to look at new things. They love to get better. They love to progress. And so when you've got an organization with that mindset, it kind of helps tie those other two together of, we want to get better. We want to, achieve excellence, even if there's no such thing. We're going to work towards doing that. And by using, keeping an open mind and involving the smartest people in the industry, I think that's how we've gone about it.
If you were to cite, just like one area that you did something like this for, this intensification that really made an impact, what was it and what did you do?
Yeah, I can give an example. We're a trickling filtered solids contact tank. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that's our process, which is kind of an old, outdated process. These trickling filters, you set up big towers of plastic media that grow the bacteria on them, and you trickle water down that media, so the bacteria has contact
Right.
and eats the waste as their food. So it is kind of an old technology, but that's what we have. We have a bunch of them and they work well, but they don't get us to, as low as limits as we need to, or as
Okay.
the treatment. So that solids contact tank, which was oversized for our process, used to be, what it was designed for is just to clump up the bacteria. It aerated it so the bacteria clump up and they settle out better in the secondary. Well,
Right.
we discovered that we can get a lot more treatment out of those basins. So by aerating them, by switching how they're aerated, which zones are aerated, by changing the blowers, the bubblers from coarse bubblers to a different type of bubbler, we revamped those aeration basins, which were designed in probably 80s, late 80s,
Right.
to do one thing, to do a totally different thing. So now we're getting a lot of nutrient removal from those basins, from the solids contact tanks, which are really now more of an aerated basin, kind of similar to an activated sludge process. And so, yeah, well, that's one example of how we said, how can we take this, change things up, and get better treatment, get nutrient removal in the basin, which it wasn't ever designed to do. And it's been working. We're taking that even further with trying to get more biological removal of nutrients, simultaneous nitrogen, phosphorus removal. Like I say, switching zones, what's aerated, anoxic, oxic zones, and switching the setup of those. And so we're playing with that and doing research on that as we speak to try to improve them even more.
Wow. I mean, it's so nice to hear that you are an organization that isn't content to say, well, that's the way we've always done it. And so that's the way you're going to continue to do it, because the playing field is changing. Like you were saying, the regulations are forcing you to change your attitude towards new technology. And so, I want to thank you for sharing what you have thus far. And that makes a great segue to what we're going to talk about in our next episode, which is how you have removed the risk by doing something really interesting actually at your facility, on the grounds of your facility, to enable you to really explore new technologies that can help you safely and risk-free. And so for those of you tuning in, stay tuned and make sure that you catch us on the next episode when we reveal that. No spoiler alerts here. And so, Blair, thank you so much. For anybody who has enjoyed what Blair shared today and would maybe like to connect with him, share resources, have great, industry conversations, you can find him on LinkedIn. Or is there a website for the organization so they can visit and see a little bit more about what you're all about? And that is?
I believe the website, I think you can just Google South Platte Renew and it'll come up there. I'll look up the website because I think we
That's
just
okay. People can look at that, but it is under
just change the address
South
recently.
Platte, and that's with 2 T's, Renew, and in Colorado. And I'm sure there's some information on there to share what this fine organization is doing. And so again, thank you for being on the show, Blair, and stay tuned. And until next time, keep it flowing. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest on the show, click the Be a Podcast guest link below in the show notes for more information. Thanks again for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of the Smells Like Money podcast.